Jam den den jam be yong la sha za lu kong ge lu lim nye den dra nye dra nam da ra sa la ve jin ye den gun che xian zu ni je tu gra le wan zen kong da si pe zhen ri ma ri men tang dung re che ze ve ro zo kong lai pu je dar ze yin lai tu ju yong den song zhu da rai che zhu nyo mo ni long le je chao zhu zhu ze jian ne ma ri men se re dung re nyu qin ye zhen ze ra zhe nam dian ne da sa ju ta shen yuan den du zuo jia se tu yu gu jun zhai ju dan ju ni jian zhe da le men zhen zhang bei yong lai du amara bazan na de amara zan na de rom 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 zan amara zan na de rom zan na de rom zan na de amara zan na de zhe de ne je je chen ra ve zhe je da le de mo men ba ra sa la ne ga dan den je zhong le to ba ye lo zhe po be nong wa sa tu so tam ge tu je sha je ri zu chong yin je me do du je pong zhen ba zi je lung bo da wu re ji be gu sha je je be sha lang gu sha ye cha san je nam zi zu du re dam je jo kor wan je dan ser tu be song tong sha je tu ba gu dam la ye la san je ba wo den la sha je wu jam yang sha ma du je jin re zi sa yin yin bo zhe ba nam bra sa nam ge yin bo shang ba gun du zong nie we se xin je la sha je wu sha dong ko lu ju we jar wo dong jin dong kal wa zong be sang je dong kong la kong du re te la ter ten be zun ba jin re zi la sha sa lo Senden po rong jik be ne cho du jie me tu jie cho la ma gan du bu mo rin jin yong jian den ma jia yam zhen ma cho ge xi ba zol la so tene namba chang ma lo la ta long ban de ba ge lu se che Christmas ta shi de le yue Perlen is Christmas singing the Yomare.
So Khenpo Rinpoche begins by wishing all of you a Merry Christmas, even though Christmas is more or less over. However, he wishes all of you a Merry Christmas, as is the custom in this part of the world. He also says in Tibet, on the other hand, Christmas as a tradition or a custom didn't exist.
Then that chen number can get chingirawa. Ngene Christmas singing the kanda yin me kazan chudoshen de in the shirang gochu maso. Shindong jie go to sing some McKinsey number 10 can or sing something that drum the what?
Da inge de Yeshu ki chungwei du jin de.
Da chungwei du jin zawa de de wa. De xindong de madame Mary chun ge yo de se ge do wa.
Ah, su se?
De ka zas ne ji do san ju na. Di son de ji to la ma la mong bu ji de ri song de nge go chue bu se shong ma song de Yeshu ge chung ge yin na nga ran zu ku yap chi ju da ha chang ge chang bu de sam ge do. De yin zang ge zha xi de le shu ge yo.
Khenpo Rinpoche wishes everyone Merry Christmas in the context of Christmas celebrating the birth of Jesus Christ. As for all of the rest, Khenpo Rinpoche says, in terms of various customs such as Christmas tree and so on, giving gifts to everyone and so on, he says he's rather confused, not knowing, even though he's tried to find out, what the Christmas tree, the giving of gifts, and so on are about. Some people apparently, according to some of the sources he has found, claim that the Christmas tree celebrates Mother Mary, something I never have heard of. However, there is a claim like that out there. So he just wants to say, as to all the perhaps cultural associations in the shape and form of a Christmas tree, giving gifts and so on, he hasn't been able to find out the actual meaning or perspectives of these customs. However, to celebrate the birth of Jesus Christ would be a good thing.
Tene tagana shinge Mother Mary ge dushin yin na yang moya shongchup sambachi tambe yom yin za tele ngazo gewa yagu chi da zhenam chochem bu sa gre sambi.
And to include Mother Mary would also be a good thing, according to Khenpo Rinpoche, explaining that she is the mother of this bodhisattva known as Jesus Christ, and therefore there is good reason for celebratory customs of any kind that celebrate her role here, that of the mother of Jesus Christ.
Tandi dushin de chedu her nang kepa yagal yue pegir lomyerwa tene sijel yue pegir lomyerwa so katang be urshira konza pasu zebashira japsung tene
Den såg i kort.
desukol
Christmas tree la så.
Ja. Tene Jesus de shongchup samba yinda mengi gela kahe ge zawana marese ne shuk chambu sheso kahe ge shongchup sambe rubje mongbo ko naso tin de ngane ngone rubje shongchup samba resen ge rubje shodra din kinji.
Apparently on the net among Tibetan scholars and those with knowledge of the various details here, that is to say with regard to Jesus Christ, Mother Mary and the like, there have been discussions on the net, and Khenpo Rinpoche has followed on the net, scholars who reside in Tibet, in India, and in various countries of the world. And some of these individuals refute the idea that Jesus Christ was a great bodhisattva, or a bodhisattva at all. And some... however, they say, they see him as a so-called holy man. And then there is another group of scholars who take the view that Jesus Christ was in fact a bodhisattva, and they set forth various reasonings by way of which they prove this, and Khenpo Rinpoche agrees with the second of these two groups. So his opinion is that Jesus Christ was a bodhisattva, or is a bodhisattva.
Ta kunji tambachi tenden rese ne dochen rabunge karku samgiyosena di jinrese gendochi ginamba semjin le pinji tona Satang Rida Guzuyun Dan
Sem
Jur.
Chen La Pen Shikton.
Yeah.
And Khenpo Rinpoche bases his opinion primarily on what is recorded in a sutra requested by Avalokiteshvara, Chenrisi. In this sutra it is stated that a bodhisattva would appear in any shape or form where, on the basis of that shape and form, whether an animal or a human being, a wild animal, such as a bird and so on, a bodhisattva would manifest in these different forms wherever there is, on the basis of that form, the possibility of benefiting others.
Then Tindegil Son much Nayung, when the Jesus Sinkin Tege, Chödrak Jimbenyam Cassage Nangdo, then Chenabe Chingra Ngayata, Chela Toza shaken to.
And if one considers one perspective of the teachings Jesus Christ gave, one of the most predominant teachings is that of unbiased generosity, giving to others what they are in need of. And today, that's one of the main features of Christianity, and many practitioners of Christianity give to educational institutions. They build schools for the poor, those in need, and so on and so forth. Hundreds of thousands of schools have been built throughout our world in the name of Christianity, for the sake of benefiting those in need, giving them an education. And it appears that the bulk of students at those institutions run by Christian associations usually do well in their studies, whatever the subjects they study may be.
That in day into Kunga Trunka the Jedin then Jigile, Tak Drabayova, Sem Tomboyova, so Gambatere Nangdua.
And so, in connection with celebrating his birth, the birth of Jesus Christ, one gives gifts to those near and dear. That's a custom as to Christmas celebrations. Which is a good thing to do.
That is on the Tangalan Bisache number of Puma Kamindu, Christmas Gamba Yenayam. Tangaran Jigdi Nangla, Jawalin Sane, Kate the me Mrs. Gendere.
Now, Khenpo Rinpoche says he doesn't have Christmas gifts for all of you. However, if one gives thought to what's most important to most individuals, it would probably be the gift of longevity.
Nana means Dr. Tena Edra, Leka Lane.
Everyone primarily engages throughout their lives in actions by way of which they maintain good health. If they fall ill, everyone will resort to finding a medication and taking the medication, seeing a doctor for advice and so on. And in terms of the circumstances of one's life, the majority of people focus on working hard in order to accumulate wealth, in order to have a comfortable life. So all in all, everyone is very concerned with, or primarily concerned with, avoiding any kind of misfortune, such as disease, poverty, and the like.
The yin yang, ngan zambulin la, jie mete, ce hajang ringbo kayang mare, ce tong tong de.
Now, if we consider the people of Jambudvipa, the Sanskrit name for our world system, according to some scholars, that's restricted to, the name refers just to the Indian subcontinent. However, in general, one understands our world with it, the world of human beings. If one considers the length of a person's lifespan in this world, the lifespan is not a long one at all.
Penna gombo sepa mege dochi gnan sondoa zambulinge minnamne se tonga de lo yatuba shatago songa.
It is recorded in a sutra where Buddha Amitayus speaks, that Buddha Amitayus said, in terms of those inhabiting the world called Jambudvipa, from the perspective of the length of their lifespan, the maximum lifespan, which in general is about 100 years, is a very short one. So 100 years is sort of the maximum as to the lifespan of human beings living in our world. Of course, there is one or two or a few who live a bit longer, but as to the majority, this is the maximum one can expect.
That then so, said I would say, the said Tigil Rotum Kinte, Halam Mede,
even so, there are not many who reach the age of 100 years. There are very few, in fact. Most people do not live to become 100 years old.
Tene, 100 genki, mirere nini yungudoa Jacob Sonor. Tenzone, set zotsare de Yana Sunam Getop Soa, Yana gave it topji.
There are, as was said, a few who become a bit older than that. Now, in terms of these individuals, the reason for them, or the possible reasons for them living another few years, is the extent of the virtue they have practiced in this life and previous lives. This contributing to a longer lifespan. it may also be that, or another reason for the same, is that some individuals who have engaged in virtuous actions on a larger scale, both in this life and in previous lives, the merit of that ripens in that life, and for that reason they live another few years, beyond 100 years.
Then 대신도 gomba chepa mibun dode tinangla 다 셋 로자레 송are 인나 양 치베 진네 신도망 선배 진네 용용레 송are.
If we go back to the sutra where Buddha Amitayus speaks, stating that in general the maximum lifespan is that of 100 years, he further explains, which is recorded in the same sutra, that there are many, many more conditions that would bring about untimely death than conditions that would result in a lifespan of 100 years. Chive ken mangere logya
야gnungsal. That is the Karsung yours and Maransola. Say yet logya to which in a young. Say parchet hajan mongbury. Ben a naggy shiwa, doggy so shiwa, journal number than the shiwa, mantul than the shiwa, that time ever yorwa.
If you consider our world, there are many, many conditions that would result in untimely death. There is there are innumerable types of disease throughout the world that could cause one's death. There are rather various substances that may poison one in one way or another. We can just take the example of air pollution, which reduces the lifespan up to 10 years and more in heavily polluted areas. There is also the way one lives one's life in terms of conduct. Here one finds many, many conditions that could bring about untimely death and so on. So there are many, many conditions that would cause untimely death and therefore shorten the lifespans of the majority, so that the majority of people do not live to 100 years.
Zina the ngay pesan juna, ngay pan water sugar, the charan numbers of Zida. Lossum genan, name chicken as jumping mecassacious.
I forgot to say in that context, there are also wars that cause untimely death throughout the world in various places at various times. Lossum
genan chula.
And we can consider the past 3 years where many, many people have faced untimely death because of the COVID pandemic. Hundreds of thousands of people have died because of the pandemic.
You can the Russian ink mantu chipul signada. Tene membom in some shit.
And if we consider the present war here on the European continent between Russia and Ukraine. There are approximately 200,000, probably more, individuals who have died till now in that war. And this war has triggered, in many countries, the production of weapons, weapons designed to be used in wars in the future, are now bought on a large scale by many, many countries as they feel threatened that something similar may happen to their country.
Weapons Thomas Zoyon de Ningem Candice say some Lomba Candice or some batero.
And the purpose of a weapon is to use that weapon for the sake of being able to eradicate and kill as many enemies as possible. So weapons are made to kill. That's the purpose of them.
Tim te pen weapons singing again on the Yuna. Sanimelo, Canimelo, Misserang the Roya.
It can't be used for anything. You can't use a weapon for food, you can't wear it, you can't use it for anything but taking lives.
That is a kangate loburchivi, Jinjanjaro.
So these are then examples of conditions and circumstances that cause untimely death.
Then they to watch your Loburgichua Tendrawate set up your best.
And there might be a question in the minds of some here. Is there any method by way of which untimely death could be avoided?
Set your
the answer is yes.
Tapen and Mandra which is Chashana Nambasangevare, Chödrak Tapcha Shanking Michroa. The into Penna. Doinang to Carson to Sana Lobur Chive
Lobur of
Taloja de Matawich Tandash Lojag Monsul Shinro at the Lobur Chiwasung Doa. Tenso Gecheto Tanda Mingin Dona Carson to Sena Zeg gone Chiwas Soa Lobur Chiwa.
Zeg gone country?
Lobur Chiwa Soa Lobur Chiwa Ya Soa. Barchet Sendo Yorwa.
So that Barchet is
Ya
Barchet was an adigero.
Re Ming gone Lobur Chiwa Selva.
Can it say young men?
Ze singing the Kandachil Kogo into Sita. Perna, Ned of Mana Kone, Neg Mongoche, Zemondua, Mendural Dachi Rainy the say.
Oh, Bena men rang.
Ya, men rang.
Say the men la Kogogere. Ina.
That get Tessam Shorgado.
Lasso.
Candersena one tane, ne, you mean the Tegorova.
Ja.
Ne Mount Kone Zupaya was a Zemondua.
Det young prevent. Say the Ngongoreve.
Gongo.
Aha, men rang mari.
Men rang. Tapena vitamin C and the main round that
Mari, yeah. Tene nipa de?
Nipa the main rang, not sana, ming so go yaro.
Yeah, so. So in terms of what
one Oh yeah, that is lot.
What one perhaps can refer to as accidental or circumstantial death, untimely death, you have various perspectives in terms of preventing this. And there are 4 methods set forth in a sutra which sets forth explanations about just this. The first of the 4 methods is that of maintaining a healthy lifestyle. One may make use of various substances here, herbs and the like, that maintain a balanced physical health. One perspective as to the modern world would be taking supplements, vitamins and minerals perhaps, if those are lacking, and so on and so forth. So by way of using substances that maintain good health, disease can in some cases be avoided and therefore untimely death. Then there is the second of the 4 methods here, which is medication and medical treatment once one has fallen ill, that one treats the illness properly so that one can recover from it, and that would also remove the possibility of untimely death. Sumpa?
Somebody can't go so. Zunga gonna chess over.
Sunga.
Zunga, Namgyalma can't.
Then there is the third of the 4 methods, which is that of practicing a so-called Dharani, the type of mantra, as it were, which is used in the context of a particular meditation practice, where the Dharani is recited, while the practitioner then does a meditation based on this Dharani, a meditation connected with the Dharani in question. That would also make for avoiding untimely death. And then there is the fourth of the 4 methods, which is that of engaging in samadhi, so-called stable meditation states. Ngumasum.
Yeah, ngumasum.
Te shipa de
Yeba teletene chiwa me pungonen rotu biyore.
So
Jiknilen debi chiwa meba.
Independence upon the first 3 of the 4 methods, the practitioner will be able to avoid untimely death or prevent untimely death. And in dependence on the 4th of the 4 methods, that of samadhi, stable meditation states, the practitioner could be able to go beyond birth and death, attaining a state of so-called deathlessness.
That into Benandenzo, Namal Shimate, Nupachewa. Then Nupacheru Cheru Yuan Rogi.
So if one looks at this list of 4 methods, the second method is more effective than the first, and the third is more effective than the first and the second, and so on. So in that order, there is a variation as to effectiveness in terms of achieving the goal of avoiding untimely death, of preventing untimely death.
That Hongwanite Pana Tindug Ming Nupa, Tindug Zeg Nupa Shirayorwa.
Now, regarding the first 2 of the 4 methods, you have a great variation here in terms of substances and medications and their treatments, by way of which many cases of untimely death can be prevented. The remaining 2,
Chetang Chulu Mongole, Nekap Chua Dotab Yorete, Chua me parang to Viete, Yomari, Jimmy turned on.
In terms of 3 and 4 then, you find in many other religions other than Buddhism, methods by way of which obstacles can temporarily be avoided. However, the method of achieving deathlessness isn't found in other traditions. It's found in Buddhism alone, or that tradition alone.
Perna, ta Nanda which Nana Nipate, that Tumbote Zazab Cheatrava.
So, in terms of then the 4, the first then is about being careful in terms of how one conducts oneself as to lifestyle in the context of good health.
Perna Tatumbote Dujet of Karen to Turtang, Setang, Jurum Chitova.
So here, in terms of the first of the 4, the primary factors for maintaining good health is herbal remedies for that purpose, supplements and the like, so various substances, as well as personal conduct.
Te Panatate Tinsang Mingri Yon on the Shagandu Cancer Rion Yimba, Purg Rion and I bet Rion and then the Tsunan song digging. Say on Jolum sink it.
So this method one finds in the modern day world, as well as in ancient traditions, both with regard to Old Tibet and, for example, the subcontinent of India, where you have the medical system called Ayurveda. So there are throughout the world both modern and ancient systems that are methods, or their purpose being maintaining good physical health.
Perna, Cholam Jitsoa said, Tam Maguli Japan Yambate, Pangne, Takargo but the Chena, then Cholam Yakuchak.
So, in terms of personal conduct, then, it's important to focus on conducting oneself in a way which maintains good health, rather than the opposite.
Penna Tarin Sala Pasha, Narange, Lop tu yimba, ngarange tropo yimba chi ngarang ran chashana, mango chi chong tong, ara tong, shesong pena. Lo sumju zegnan.
Khenpo Rinpoche himself knows a number of people who died young, untimely death, simply because of smoking, because of drinking, and the like.
Yeah, that drinking thing is magul chalaro.
One doesn't have to drink alcohol to the extent at all to begin with, or to the extent where one dies at an early age, such as 30 years old, for example. It's not a need for, or in the context of keeping oneself alive. It's something extra, completely unnecessary, that one doesn't have to use at all or to drink at all.
Teniya de ko nyong ji jönju ma de. Alcoholic sayonde, alcohol sayonde. Tonye gwain rawo, aran rawo chikuyang ma de. Penna taman na ko say rawo this kankare.
Now, when one says, or here one would rather say, in order to make clear that there are many substances other than alcohol that cause the same, so one can speak of substance abuse. So this would include drugs, smoking cigarettes, and the like. Tobacco, there is no need in order to maintain life to smoke tobacco. Smoking tobacco has no positive effect on one's health. Why would one use tobacco while knowing that tobacco destroys the lungs?
Oh yeah. Then tagana think sage towa sayade samayang bukayun kin yagud sayade bekechembure.
And then there is one's food intake. It's important to see to that the foods one eat are proper foods, not adulterated, meaning crops from crops cultivated with pesticides and the like.
Pendi shubina, tange misses in the keche yina. Di yakuchi pa deve tandala, to the concept tona yang, perna biological food mato, chemical food to my energy.
Now, if one is concerned with the length of one's lifespan, the best would be to just eat food that's grown organically without pesticides. Some then would consider that this is an extra cost because organically grown food costs more than the regular food that's grown with the use of pesticides. However, it's a well-known fact that pesticides, which comes into the body by way of eating food grown with pesticides, do make for disease. So perhaps it would then be better to reduce some other things so that one's budget doesn't become imbalanced, to leave something else out that may not be necessary, and stick to organically grown food if one really wants to, or if one is really concerned with the length of one's lifespan.
Tene 세디 양고 맞잖아. 로블 치와 망고 용비요.
There are many who fall prey to untimely death in connection with foods that are not the kind of foods that maintain good health. They simply just fill the stomach, that's all.
백마란이 샤는슈나 네 산이 제발 때네 나시서서 좀 팅못 나서
Tingma.
팅마 나서
Khenpo Rinpoche takes himself as an example. In the past, having sort of, when feeling hungry, eaten something that wasn't a proper food. Proper food here meaning the kind of food that maintains good health. He has been subject to food poisoning 4 or 5 times, severe food poisoning. Because of not giving thought to the quality of what he ate. The quality of the food that he ate.
다 통통질 슈비나 년동 집든 로래 나 비윤네 직 나네 하는 저기 단일 전체 직 레센 뱀이 두고신 나서 전화요 봐. 게트볼 데드 텐징 나서 돼.
Yeah, right.
대 가르르서는 내 산이 쇼르세. 나 뭐에 진짜대?
In 2019, while
17.
I thought you said 19. 2017, sorry. When Khenpo gave a longer course at the monastery there, he had a minor stroke. And he says that the initial cause which then developed into that minor stroke was bad food.
That bad food said the condition Janax Zoyabeke, Purg Chalelavishin Zoyachiva, Pobano look
you have this, well, most of you may be familiar with so-called Tibetan tea, which is made with tea leaves, water, quite a bit of milk and butter. Perhaps not quite a bit of milk, just butter. Now, today in China, there is the manufacturing of packages with small portion instant Tibetan tea. And someone had given Khenpo Rinpoche such a package as a gift, and he was aware of and had heard about that the substances in this instant tea were not the best at all. Still, he went ahead and drank it. And this is what primarily caused the minor stroke he then had.
Stroke
Yeah, and a stroke is a stroke. Minor in terms of it not lasting for a long time, but a stroke. And when you have a stroke, either you die or you may become partially or fully paralyzed. There are all sorts of consequences in the context of this disease.
antibiotic mongushi which sajute song. This sadu chen ni shira kugumendo. Some mongpo which tangi. Tang the nganzo zambul link missing in the one net chane marik be shinji labund jagun janari indoa. Zengin nganzo sa destan chola tang de yorwa.
Oh yeah. So,
environment singing desa thola tang yorwa.
Now, in the present, Khenpo was diagnosed with a severe stomach bacteria, so right now he's on a cure of antibiotics for that. And because of the medication, he has found it quite difficult to sleep. It keeps him awake. And so he's spent a great deal of his nights lately thinking about this and that. Also what we're talking about here. And he's come to the conclusion that the people of today's world appear to be blessed by total and utter ignorance. Darkness has enveloped the minds of the people in the world. Everyone knows that junk food and the like is very bad in terms of maintaining good health. It causes diseases. And everyone knows that mass consumption and mass production of items of all sorts of kinds will eventually destroy the planet because of the polluting forces of all of this. And still, people just keep doing it. So, Khenpo Rinpoche says he can only draw the conclusion that the people of today's world are blessed by total and utter ignorance. They act idiotically, stupidly.
Ngaranso ta nangba sanje ve yonglung ne sanje da songsim ji shinje la ba se ji yorwa ta ti ngaranso duksal be yad marik be shinji ji lab yong du zamne nan she se se ke ta environment dupore chume ba chagre chawam bargre se
laso
ti pena rikpa dan tembe keja mangu shege yorwa chik ni pat yang food sana ngazo dupu shibuchi reijire se deate halam rikpa dan tembe keja roba ti na ngazo mari beshinji chi lab sadu tatong kanrachi rachi sagdo.
Now, in the context of the Buddhist path, one speaks of the resonant wave of spiritual influence of Buddhas and Bodhisattvas that make progress towards enlightenment possible. So, a good influence. And then, if we consider what was just said, namely, people in the world at large. Now, today, most people of our world know that pollution and the like generated by mass consumption and so on make for the drying up of water sources, heat waves, forest fires. It's all endless. And this is proven by acceptable logical reasoning put forth by scientists of today. And most people in the world, they know that consuming junk food will cause disease. Still, people continue the same, both in terms of consumption, junk food, and the like. So the only conclusion one can arrive at here then, Khenpo Rinpoche explains, is the major part of those living in the world are influenced by ignorance, total and utter ignorance. So ignorance is quite astonishing, as nobody wants to fall in. No one wants to have to face untimely death. But most of the individuals here keep doing what causes just that.
Ngasum seme yang chugundo. Ngasum seme chutang de kandeji chugundo sena. Per na flute zonke ang tangpo den zambulin dina na America wa. Talo lot takpareshi lomba de Mecca sembargando California area.
If we look at the continent that pollutes the most in the world today, it's the continent of the United States of America. And we can see what happens this year. For example, there are heat waves, forest fires, bomb cyclones with snow, and so on and so forth. Extreme weather patterns that have never before been this frequent.
And
the second most polluting country in the world is China, and it's common knowledge as to the extreme weather patterns and natural disasters there caused by climate change.
Tagan ashing seg ton shena junk food jangjang sawal tenne perna janan rawchir chashana missum gnane michi diabetics na de yorba.
And if we look at one of the results of feeding oneself primarily with junk food in China, 1 in 3 people there nowadays has diabetes, and apparently it's commonly accepted that this is caused by the junk food they eat. Their own health department says so.
So in
terms of maintaining good health and avoiding untimely death, the 2 first of the 4 methods are rather important.
Then
we have the third, the one related to Dharanis.
Tas sangjedang shangsimje tu yu kul tenzo shinjilabe zonga chepersin sola segiyot.
Tu yu kul ngarang raba?
Sangjedang shangshib samba sobi shinjilab ten ngarang dumba poge yang sowa sechido tabne zonga danso zhongna tseringba detu guyoshe.
So, in brief, Buddhas and bodhisattvas have imbued the various Dharanis with their spiritual influence, and the practitioner who is able to one-pointedly recite and do the practice associated with the Dharani will, by way of doing so, eradicate obstacles and hindrances that could otherwise have caused untimely death.
Ti nane chang nganzo lobur du tsay parshe sewalla nganji tukje tang
ngange tukje
ngan shongchub chodo tukje du
sanje ran shanshub senpa
ya tukje du tang molum ge topge dene tang hane chime tselan namsam sengi songge pare.
Now, in terms of overcoming so-called untimely death, in Buddhism, you find in particular 3 deities associated with longevity. And these 3 being in particular associated with longevity originates with the vows they generated in connection with them generating the body-mind for the first time and their aspiration prayers in that context.
아니 chime tselan namsam de garesna zowote gombo tsetan yishe pagme ba singidre.
And the main figure here is that of, in the context of these 3, is that of Buddha Amitayus, the Buddha of boundless life.
Tene kongge chöji kule Tsuktor singit terwa chöji kut. Chöji kut telle Chinles sharwa Zentrum kanmutang Namgyalma nire.
Tene da de Tsuktor de Drenshechik de da Sangye chiki da kanase. Öla sopa erego lambo ere mereme.
Lam sangye singi number we songmendo we.
Tesego.
Sangye selme tombe.
Yeah. Don't know where wrong thing. Sangye se. Oh yeah, I think you have it here.
Cause it's all tin.
Do it. Just say
that dream is something that the that in the teacher.
Kongi tugi serva.
Yeah.
Sanje kare.
Serve.
Golden light rava.
Yeah, serve. Otta serve sejan serve number was and that the Chitan Lujuki Tonroa. Tango, Chinleg Rani de Gombo, or the Mebe, Chinlay in Bachi.
Oh, Tanda Gombo, up to my bottom.
Yeah.
Ah, Dina Serra Sengen number read.
Yeah, the Yen Shannon.
Dangpo Gombo up to my back.
Yeah.
Dangpo de Tsuktor de Kain Coin.
Then they Tsuktor said, Tsuktor Namgyalma, Tsuktor Dukkarmo, Tsuktor Chime, Öser Chime, Stjane, Tak, Chödin Yinandra, Kunda Yinandra, Ditsuno Duyag Zonji Yorwa.
Den så gi ming kanga Tsuktor kanske Chödrak nangi tsugyagi nga ergo.
Rere, Chödrak nane tsukre kunda nane tsukre.
Tsuktor kande songso.
Tsuktor Namgyalma.
Namgyalma.
Tsuktor Dukkarmo.
Dukkarmo.
Tene ta tigene öser time. Tsuktor time.
Öser time.
Tsuktor time se kechaten chi yore.
Det där Zentrum indra va?
Zentrum. Tinsu song kangal Tsuktor se yargoyate. Tsuktor kodan to go tsuktuk de mare. 샤즈도 올 쭉쭉 진도와 나라서 탕갔는데
이 천던로 봐.
대 천던데. 간
최고기 천던.
야, 간 천용고여서 쭉 생겨도 토셔들이. 탈뚝들이.
Summit.
탈뚝데 가르서는 최고리.
테네쭉 토셔들이 테네 토르 세디.
토르 세디 텀보윤 킹암 강남에 빠들 고기요.
Okay, Tati. So we're that which is going to be explained in terms of the specific Dharani that is to be explained has to do with one of the three dimensions of Buddha, the enlightened state, the Dharmakaya. Which is the highest, as it were, state that there is, the summit that's highest because there is nothing above it. And that's what the Sanskrit word Ushnisha means or points to, Tsuktor in Tibetan. Now, there are a number of Dharanis here associated with the so-called Ushnisha. One that has to do with, or that is associated with, the deity Ushnisha Vijaya, Tsuktor Namgyalma. One which is associated with the deity White Umbrella. One associated with the deity Stainless Light. One associated with the deity Stainless. There are a number of Dharanis that very often are placed within a stupa or a statue in terms of consecrating these structures. Now, as was said, the Sanskrit word Ushnisha, Tsuktor in Tibetan, points to the Dharmakaya as the summit of Buddha, the enlightened state, pointing to that there is nothing higher than this state. There is nothing above it, as it were. Now, in terms of depicting a Buddha in a painting or a statue of the Buddha, there is the so-called Ushnisha at the top of the Buddha's head, and it's depicted as a three-dimensional oval at the top of a Buddha's head, located towards the back of the head, and often referred to as the crown of Lord Buddha. Now, that three-dimensional oval is a symbol of the Dharmakaya. In order to understand the context here, one needs to give thought to what was just said, that the Ushnisha, seen in Buddhist art as a three-dimensional oval at the top of Lord Buddha's head, is a symbol of the highest state of enlightenment.
Tati indu lamu drama karmotan namgyalmani gambo pod meve shokule zukun namba semjing tsei parche seviche du sharaji reshu na manduga yomare.
And in terms of the three deities of longevity, there is Buddha Amitayus, which is connected with Buddha Amitabha. There is White Tara and Ushnisha Vijaya, Tsuktor Namgyalma in Tibetan. Now both White Tara and Ushnisha Vijaya emanated from the Ushnisha, the symbol of the Dharmakaya, so originated from the Dharmakaya perspective of Buddha Amitabha's enlightenment. So that's their origin.
And
all three are deities of longevity. That is to say, their practices have the aim of preventing untimely death.
That teacher chime namsam nane jetun drama karmi korte ngeche number sole ngamanga karsa kaka es dedune shude inche number 2 ngegre.
So
ngegi yebe rawai ngala.
Khenpo Rinpoche says the White Tara practice he has explained at length, starting with the explanations he gave at the KKS Center, or the KKS Center, many years ago. So he hopes that most of you have kept the instructions he gave at the time in mind, and that you therefore are familiar with this practice. He has also explained the same practice at the present center where he teaches, here in Vienna, Karma Sampling.
Dharani Tusendela Ngeche number sola Kismis Gambate Tsuktor Namgyalma Zongchok Gone Makamich Shogi Darin course Zongchoga.
So as to this series of lectures, Khenpo Rinpoche explains it's his Christmas gift to all of you. He's going to explain the Dharani of Ushnisha Vijaya and the meditation practice associated with it.
Chen number so kusela parshe meva. Lord Jatamba to be Ravai.
In the hope of that this may prevent untimely death and that all of you live to be 100 years.
Ta yin yang ngaran le chatsuna tene sanye shorwal tene katsin tan nani yeni sanye shorwal tene treba madeva shira chasung tel tene me mungo saju kesung tel tene me de sadu ni ku matwas chagdu tege train se wuchran tenge mendo te yinsa tange dancha jeme nala hyugi.
So Khenpo Rinpoche will begin the explanations of that practice during the next session. He, as he mentioned earlier, has a stomach infection in the moment and isn't feeling too well, and so therefore today he chose to merely give an introduction to this practice because he hasn't been able to sleep well lately because of the stomach infection, and he feels a bit off, so to speak, and we'll begin the explanations of the actual practice during the next session.
Tene Chödrak jigen sarang do myong ne sebu shutu mendo de. Ta Chödrak yema jinda dangbu nang char ma song na Chödrak jig la song na de du shuchu.
So therefore he may not be able to complete the explanations during the next session. There are only 2 sessions scheduled for this topic, which means he will continue the explanations during 1 or 2 more of the sessions that were scheduled for January.
Penna Namgyalma kornde nge Namgyalma wang re zong long re tenzo yang rig do ji kunde ne tobai tagan na shinge jobje chirum ji kunde ne tobai shamarum ji kunde tobai yinte tenzu kolangara donang shira chongmason yinoge drunken don't sonde gamakar rang kol donang chete
ku kong ma
me tanda yino songdo ta Dharani Namgyalma shedu pelo mongu shira jebgo do pelo te charya charmason.
Now Khenpo Rinpoche has previously obtained the empowerment of Ushnisha Vijaya, as well as the reading, transmission and explanations from the late Karmapa Rangyung Rigpe Dorje, from the late Sakya Master Chobje Trichin Rinpoche, from the late Shama Rinpoche, and from the present Karmapa Trinletaya Dorje. However, he hasn't in particular focused on this practice, which means that for him to give proper explanations, he has to go through a number of scriptures, which takes time, in order to prepare for the teachings he gives here during the sessions. That's why it may take a few sessions to complete the teachings. In general, the White Tara practice is said to be or attributed to, in particular, the Kagyu school. She is considered, the White Tara, an outstanding and important yidam in all sub-schools of the Karma Kagyu tradition. The Kagyu tradition.
Chen number 2 lo chengi yoda me nga shue me garchin Rinpoche chachi song song yezon dhamma karma de yakun donro chis nga chu injik pale kong job songs cheng injik pale kong job songs me injik pale kong job song injik pa jedon chutuk lo kong jap thakyu jab re nga yendar chimbu nga ran nyuma yo song do.
A couple of years ago, Gachin Rinpoche, a master of the Drigung Kagyu school, visited Karma Sampeling, and if you remember, he told all of you that Tara had protected him from situations of misfortune in terms of the possibility of untimely death in connection with flooding, in connection with fires, in connection with encountering people with weapons and the like. He said that Tara, and in particular White Tara, will protect you from all kinds of fears, and there are 2 classifications in Buddhism of 8 major fears and another one of 16 major fearful situations where untimely death is possible, and he advised everyone to do this meditation practice.
Koran jikpale chapel loju di tengal sonso ngazo kalasa tuchil.
And during a meal that Khenpo Rinpoche and Gachin Rinpoche had together, Gachin Rinpoche told Khenpo Rinpoche of the various situations where he had been protected.
Cheber tuyang yang ku kongun tandai ku yu yimba thaya doja tang tene ku koma rig doja nika tu dam til rab nang do.
And both the late Karmapa and the present Karmapa appear to focus on White Tara as a yidam.
Ta Tsuktor Namgyalma de jirtang sakyal kapavachre.
Now, the Ushnisha Vijaya, Tsuktor Namgyalma, is specific to the Sakya school of Tibetan Buddhism. Primarily, it is, when one says specific to, one means that this practice is emphasized and very prominent in that tradition. Of course, other traditions use the practice too, but not to the same extent. All 4 schools of Tibetan Buddhism have the practice, do the practice. However, in terms of its origin, there is a connection in specific to the Sakya school.
Yin yang Sakya na jubajirela lakton to yang tanda shal so shin yugba kan tanda shal yug jamba so shin se de mashiwa se ge ro shesa che de shal so shin yugba se karma pathle thaye doje Tsuktor Namgyalma nenten shiran nang do penam mitsoje yinole jamjung raw shu katang raw shu namgyal tongsho phusho son namgyalma de zordön shiran zegen de gopa chi yosare sang.
In particular, the present Karmapa, Trilataya Dorje, emphasizes the practice of Ushnisha Vijaya to quite some extent. Very often when individuals seek his advice in terms of difficulties they may have encountered, he advises them to arrange for, which can be done at various monasteries, a series of 1,000 offerings of specific items in the context of Ushnisha Vijaya.
Tega nashin ki tse ringbo deva mase leng ngambaswa yawaso nisong do mindro wayang shibuji pengi yobar ta ngesanyi loju dinzo shuda.
And this practice of Ushnisha Vijaya prevents untimely death as well as nipa. Is regarded as specifically effective in eradicating the possibility of rebirth in one of the three lower existences.
Tenche tan de charsona nga masho tsering bodaw chona yeso che number so la tsedan yishe pagdu me pendo de de ji shucho.
Aya.
Gam tsepa mek.
Se pagdu me. Kan do git sen.
Do korang tsen le tsedan.
A yeshe.
Yeshe pagdu me pendo.
Now, Khenpo Rinpoche says, provided that nothing happens in terms of his lifespan, once the explanations of the sutra, which in short sets forth the Dharani practice of Ushnisha Vijaya, once these explanations are completed, he will then go on to explain another sutra named Boundless Lifespan and Wisdom. So that's all for today.
Sunam de tam jes zakbani tam ne nyebe danam hamsete jegana balap truwa ye sigbe solen do wa dor war show.